Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last little while. They're a brewery that I only kind of came into contact with quite recently, but from what I've seen, this brewery are quite diverse and they do a whole variety of different things, and the beer's been pretty solid in my experiences so far. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is one that I've heard very, very good things about. It's a style that I very much enjoy, and one that I would say that is enjoying a little bit of a renewed popularity in recent times, which I'm really happy about. So I've tried this beer before, I know it's pretty good, so I'm certainly looking forward to doing a more kind of in-depth sit-down tasting and things like that with this one. So needless to say, I'm very curious to try this beer again. Hopefully it's as good as I remember, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to stick to Hong Kong like I said. We're going to go round Kowloon Bay over to an area called Sampo Kong, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Deadman Brewery. So this particular beer is called Hop Robber. It comes in at 8% ABV, and this one is a West Coast double IPA. So yeah, I first tried this beer on tap actually at the brewery, which was really quite nice, and yeah, Ash very kindly gave me a can of this one to review here on the channel, so a big thank you to Mr. Deadman Ash for making this review possible. This is a beer that I've been wanting to review for quite a wee while, and it is nice to finally be able to do some Deadman videos for you on the channel. It took me a wee while to compile the notes for this for these videos that I've been doing for you recently, so yeah, we can now enjoy some good Deadman beers. These guys are definitely one of the kind of really up and coming Hong Kong breweries at the moment, so check them out if you get the chance. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we got on. The Hop Robber 8% West Coast Double IPA from Deadman Brewery in Sampo Kong in Kowloon here in Hong Kong. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Deadman Brewery so far, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things, and that's being added to quite regularly, of course, because I live here in the territory now. And there's quite a lot of different beers coming out, but do make sure you check out the beers from other countries as well and check out those other playlists, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Deadman Brewery once again then. So, Deadman Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, is based in the Sampo Kong area of Kowloon here in Hong Kong, and the brewery was founded back in 2018 by Jerry Ko and Sherman Chan. So both of these guys are Hong Kongers, and they were old school friends that used to play basketball together really often. But Sherman had a sports bar in Kwun Tong called The Stadium, and he discovered craft beer through the salespeople that were supplying him, and he was looking for more interesting beers to serve in the bar, and so he started to look a little bit more down the craft beer route actually. But Jerry was apparently exposed to craft beer while in Canada studying veterinary science, and this prompted him to start homebrewing his own beers, which he used to do on his rooftop. But then when he was back in Hong Kong, he bumped into an old friend on a tour of Lion Brewery who was really interested in starting his own brewery, and things just went from there. And this friend was of course Sherman. So the brewery is apparently named Deadman because everyone in Hong Kong is a dead man walking, as they say, basically working their arses off. But this plays into the brewery's skull symbol and zombie artwork. And the first beer that they produced under the Deadman name was the Dirty Pale Ale, and this was first released in 2018. So the current head brewer of Deadman Brewery is Jason Lee, and Jason studied chemical engineering at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology. And apparently during this course he took a trip to a brewery in mainland mainland China, and it was this that inspired him to become a brewer. So when he got home, he googled beer in Hong Kong, and then Munzen appeared. So he joined them as a brewing intern in the summer of 2017, and he later went on to work for Young Master, where he started on the packaging line and worked his way up to be a senior brewer. But he also started a brand called OCBD Beer in 2020 with his friend Chung Ka Ming, and then he joined Deadman as their head brewer in July of 2020. And he is quite sought after, apparently. A lot of brewers have been asking him if he wants to go to the States or to Europe or whatever, so he is very highly thought of within the industry. So Deadman have got themselves somebody pretty good behind the brew kit at the moment, so you need to try the beers. But they operate a 500 litre Chinese brew kit, and currently the brewery produces around 6,000 litres of beer per month, which translates to about 70,000 litres of beer per year. And the beers were originally released in bottles, but then in 2020 they switched over to cans after purchasing an American canning line, and apparently they're planning to open up their own bar at some point in the fairly near future, so we'll need to see how that goes. But over the years they've continued to develop new recipes and expand the brewery's fermentation capacity and build up their sales, and the main man on the sales side of things is Ashwan Prabhu, who is known locally as Deadman Ash. You'll see him in my out and about video that I did at Deadman, so we need to see about getting that published, but keep your eyes peeled for that. Lovely guy, and you'll have a nice conversation with him if you meet him. But the Deadman artwork apparently is the brainchild of Jerry, and then the brewery workers have a few beers and brainstorm new name ideas for the new beers that they produce, and then the final sketch that they have is passed on to a professional ghost artist who adds colour and finishes off the idea before the beer is released with the label on it. So yeah, quite cool that one of the original founders is doing the artwork of these beers as well. But as of July 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 60 different beers according to Untappd, and they will no doubt continue to increase that number as time goes on. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Deadman Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and actually have a little look at this beer and see how we go. So I'll let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. You can see it has a little bit of a Mexican style to it, this one, the hop robber robbing the banks and things like that. I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, you can see hop robber there, as many of the Deadman cans do. It's got the lovely little blue ring pull on it. I think that's a nice touch. And it says on the side here, this double IPA is the perfect imbalance of hops and everything else. Not for the faint-hearted, it's impeccable with a fat, juicy steak. But like I said to you earlier, this one comes in at 8% ABV. It's a West Coast double IPA, which means that it's pretty much all barley malt in the malt base here, and the hops in this one are Amarillo, Simcoe and Warrior. We know all of these hops quite well. Amarillo American, 12% alpha acid, it's going to give you that lovely big zesty orange. Simcoe, 12% alpha acid and American, again that's going to give you more of a kind of oily passion fruity character. And then Warrior is used mostly as a bittering hop. It's got quite a bit of grapefruity character to it and like a big floral aromatic spice. I think it can be like 15 to 18% alpha acid, something like that. It's pretty high in its alpha acid content. But yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the beer. The only other thing to add is that the malt base in this one is Cara Red and Pilsner malt. So yeah, 8% West Coast double IPA, this one, the hop robber. Let's get it out into the glass and see how we go. I'm looking forward to trying this one again, because it's been on my list for a wee while. That's one of the things with the Deadman beers at the moment, is they're quite popular because everyone recognises in Hong Kong that the Deadman stuff is really good beer. So as soon as these beers appear in the beer shops, they disappear quite quickly, especially the likes of Hop Robber and the Pineapple Express and stuff like that. So yeah, big thank you to Ash for giving me this can to review here on the channel. So yeah, we've got the whole beer out into the glass now, and you can see that it's poured with just under a finger of a kind of bumpy and creamy white coloured head. It looks very, very nice. Yeah, the colour of this one, you see the head of that, you've got medium-sized bubbles on the surface there, and it gets a bit soapier the further up that you go. But yeah, the colour of this one is pretty nice. You've got a lovely kind of naturally hazy pale golden straw colour, this one. It looks really, really quite nice, actually. So remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well. But you don't often have to care about that when it comes to IPAs. Now, when it comes to the West Coast IPAs, for me there are two ways this beer style can go. It can be more caramelly and oily, such as the Sierra Nevada Torpedo, or it can be more along the lines of a kind of bready and biscuity affair, such as the Pliny the Elder from Russian River Brewing. Just going by the colour of this one, I know this one is going to be more kind of bready and biscuity. I've had it before, so I can tell you that it's like this. So yeah. It's kind of surprising that there's Cara Red in this one, because I would have expected a bit more of an amber colour out of the beer. And I remember trying this one and thinking, oh, I was expecting, like, with the way that some of the other Deadman beers are, I was expecting something a little bit more kind of oily and sweet and things. But yeah, no, this is more of a bready, biscuity leaning West Coast IPA. But yeah, it looks pretty nice, this one. As I've said, it's something we've seen with the West Coast IPA style before. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But overall, it looks pretty nice, which is what you would expect from this brewery anyway. But yeah, I don't think we need to say anything more about the appearance of this one. You can see the head has kind of faded away a little bit. So let's have a wee look at the aroma of the beer then and see what it's going to have in store for us then. I'm quite curious about this. Yeah, I will say with this one, it's a lot more bready than I remember. And it's not got the most pungent of aromas either. That's the funny thing. But as I say, I know that this is a really, really good beer. And you know, when you sugar the beer up, you start to get more of the oily, hoppy character out of this one. The hoppy side of this beer really is pretty damn oily, in fact. But yeah, you can smell the lovely kind of German breadiness in there. You have got a bit of that green component, and you've got those lovely sort of oily, fruity characters coming out of it as well. But all in all, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is really, really nice. So aroma-wise, gets a big thumbs up from me. Let's just break that aroma down though and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So the backbone of this beer, you get a lovely little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust coming out of this one. So that forms the backbone of your beer. You have got a little hint of woodiness in there. There is a little bit of cracker in there, but yeah, you have got quite a nice little bit of that white bready bread crust. On top of that, there's a sort of grainy, yeah, there's a nice kind of grainy brown bready character coming out of the beer, which I think is great. So yeah, a nice grainy brown bready character in there. Then on top of that, there's a lot of nice kind of fluffy white bread as well. So yeah, for me, the big fluffy white bready character, that's the thing that kind of dominates the aroma here. And it smells quite German, in honesty. It smells like that fresh German white bread, and I miss the bakeries in Germany. I used to love that when I lived there, just going to the bakery, getting a few pretzels and getting the bread for the next couple of days. Loved it. So yeah, for me, the bready character that comes out of this one is really nice. Yeah, lovely, fresh, fluffy white bread in there. You've got that bit of brown bread underneath, like I said. On top of that, you can smell the Pilsner malt. Like at the back of the nose, you do get that Pilsner malty crispness in there. So yeah, lovely little bit of Pilsner malty crispness in there. Then on top of that, you get the nice biscuity notes coming out of it. So yeah, sweet little bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit in there. Yeah, McVitie's digestive biscuit. Definitely a little touch of straight up caramel in there. I don't know if I'd say there's a wee touch like that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy sort of thing. It's more, yeah, straight up caramel, McVitie's digestive biscuit, and you've got that little bit of Pilsner malty crispness, like I said. There is a little touch of yeastiness to this beer as well, which is kind of interesting. So for me, at the back of the nose, you can pick up a little bit of, yeah, at the back of the nose, you can pick up a little bit of that woodiness There's a little bit of like a sort of more farmhousey bready character. There's brown bread in there, white bready character, a little bit of woodiness, a little bit of cracker and stuff like that. And yeah, the way that all of that pieces together, I think, is really, really nice. So yeah, I quite like that with this one. A little bit of brown bread, a little bit of white bread, and a wee bit of a kind of woody, crackery sort of character in the yeasty side of this beer. But yeah, on to the hoppy side of things then. For me, the green component of this beer I think is really interesting. So when it comes to IPAs, you have to think about these a little bit, because there are three kinds of hoppings. You've got early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That gives you pretty much all your bitterness and a big deep dank green component. You've got late edition hopping, which takes place within the last half hour of the wort boil, assuming a 90-minute wort boil, of course, because that's what most IPAs have there or thereabouts. But that gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it'll also give you a brighter green component in terms of that flavour and aroma as well. And then yeah, you have the on top of that, yeah, you've got the nice brain's not working. You've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. So that gives you a lot of flavour and aroma, no bitterness at all, and yeah, it's going to contribute to a quite bright green component there in terms of your flavour and aroma. But yeah, with this one, the green component, you do get a nice little bit of depth and dankness to it. And that's obviously going to be the Warrior. I'm pretty sure the Warrior is the early edition hop in this one. West Coast IPAs use all three types of hoppings. Incidentally, New England IPAs tend to rely on late edition and dry hopping. But yeah, you do have a little touch of earthiness in there. There is quite a bit of herbal character in this one, and that is one of the characteristics of Warrior. It gives you this slightly woody herbal sort of thing, and you can smell some of that in here for sure. But then yeah, you have a nice little bit of floral aromaticity and quite an oily, grassy character as well coming out of this one. So yeah, the way that that goes together is really, really interesting for me as well. Yeah, interesting stuff for sure. So quite an oily green component, but yeah, quite herbal and woody. That was a little bit of a surprise. Yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the green component. Let's have a wee look at the fruity side of things. I will say though, the fruity side of this beer is pretty straightforward, in all honesty. So for me, on the fruity side of things, you have a little bit of this kind of oily, peary character, some sultana type notes. So oily pear, sultana, quite a little bit of oily passion fruit, wee bit of pineapple as well, and then yeah, you've got this nice kind of oily, zesty, orangey character to this one as well, which I think is really, really nice. And the oily, zesty orange is of course going to come from the Amarillo in this one. I love Amarillo, one of my favourite hops, especially in a more kind of caramelly leaning West Coast IPA. So yeah, it's giving you everything you'd kind of expect. I'm surprised at the wee sort of peary sultana type notes in this one. That's quite interesting, so I'm wondering if that's coming from the Warrior actually. But yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. That's always half the experience when it comes to craft beer. But let's go on and have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Hop Robber, an 8% West Coast Imperial Double, whatever you want to call it, IPA from the wonderful Deadman Brewery in Sampo Kong, Kowloon here in Hong Kong. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, this is really nice. Bit more, I have to say, just on that first sip, it's a bit more bitter and sort of dank and resinous than I remember it being. A bit more kind of floral and spicy as well, actually. The ones I remember that I had before were a little bit sweeter than this. That's quite interesting. But yeah, it's a really nice, clean, oily and slick West Coast IPA, this one. As I said, it gets a big thumbs up from me. I really like how this pieces together actually. So yeah, let's see. This is proper old school, this one actually. So if you want a big old school bitter West Coast IPA, this is one of the ones you definitely need to have a little look at. So yeah, let's just break this beer down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. Middle third of the palate then. So the backbone of the beer, you have that lovely fresh white bready bread crust in there, and the way that that goes together, as I say, is very, very nice. So for me, the backbone of this beer, it's fresh white bready bread crust. As you move further forward on that middle 30 palate, there's a little touch of woodiness in this one, which is quite nice. So you've got that little touch of woody character, of course, and then on top of all of that bread crust, you start to get the sort of Jacob's cream crackery note to this one too. So yeah, good little bit of Jacob's cream cracker in there. On top of that, you do get a little bit of an almost wholemeal brown bready character, which is quite interesting. You do get a little bit of graininess out of this beer into the aftertaste as well, but I'm thinking that that's maybe the effect of the Warrior giving you that woody herbal sort of thing. It sort of promotes this slightly grainy flavour from the malty base. But yeah, backbone of the beer, as I say, you've got that brown bready, grainy bread crust in there, a little bit of woodiness, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker, then a layer of wholemeal brown bread, and then above that you've got a lighter layer of a more, kind of fluffy white bready character coming out of the beer, which I think is really interesting. Yeah, but the bread does have that dryness to it, and of course it's Cara Red and Pilsner malt that's in here, so having the white bready character of this one being just that little bit lighter isn't kind of, it's not really overly surprising, in all honesty. So yeah, the way that that goes together is nice. So above the white bready character, you start to get that little bit of, as I say, that white bready note in there. Then above that you get a little bit of like a toasty brown sugar to start off with, so you can feel that more toasty brown sugary character in the base. Then above that you've got the more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity character out of this one, and then in the dead centre of your palate you get that little bit of like straight up caramel, but it's also got a wee bit of that more concentrated oily bubble to it as well. So yeah, the way that this one goes together I think is really, really nice in the middle third of your palate. Then the other thing I'll say is that at the back of that middle third of the palate you really see the effects of the Pilsner malt in this one. It's not uncommon to use a little bit of Pilsner malt in West Coast IPAs, particularly in European brewed ones actually. I don't think the Americans tend to do that too often with their West Coast IPAs right enough. But yeah, you do get that nice dry crispness at the back of that middle third of your palate there for sure. So yeah, that's quite interesting with this beer actually. It does have that's probably one of the things that makes this beer so light and drinkable. It's dangerously light and drinkable for an 8%er in all honesty. But yeah, still really nicely done. So quite different to other West Coast IPAs I've had in recent times actually. But let's go on to the back third of your palate. And as I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. And then yeah, the middle third of your palate and the back third of your palate, you're going to get similar flavours coming out of these, but just at different intensities. So yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate. You've got a little bit of brown bread in the base, the white bread on top, and then a wee bit more of as I say, a little bit more of a kind of Pilsner malty crispness in there. But the base of that back third of your palate, you can feel the bread crusty characters in there. That's a little bit lighter and drier and more grainy. Then above that you've got the Jacob's cream crackery character. The brown bready character sits above that like a more kind of fluffy, yeah, a little bit more of a kind of more fluffy wholemeal brown bready character, and they're a little bit drier of course, but lighter and more airy. The white bread sits above that, again a little bit lighter, drier and more airy, and then you can feel some of the Pilsner malt, the dryness of the Pilsner malt just creeping over the top of that, and then above everything else on that back third of your palate, you get all the yeasty character coming out of the beer. So let's have a little look at that yeasty side of things then before we move on to the hoppy side of the beer. So yeah, for me, yeasty side of this beer, at its core, it's got a little bit more of that kind of wholemeal brown bready character coming out of it. So yeah, you feel that wholemeal brown bready note in the middle. It's a bit more grainy. Round the edge, it's got a little bit more of a kind of fluffy white bready character to it. And then yeah, you've got a bit more of a, you do actually have a little bit of a drier, toastier bread crust around the edge of that, which is quite interesting, and that does give the beer a little bit more dryness into the aftertaste as well. So yeah, yeasty's character in this beer is quite interesting, and along with the Pilsner malt, that dryness and crispness lingers into the aftertaste for sure. But yeah, definitely back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way it goes together, I think, is really, really nice, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so in terms of the hoppy side of things with this beer, then let's go there. Back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there, of course, and it has a good little bit of bitterness to it as well. You can feel a wee bit of this herbal woody thing as you move further forward. But then yeah, as you move along the sides of your palate, you can feel underneath you've got that sort of deep, kind of dank, piney resinous quality, and then as you reach the front corners of your palate, you've got more of a spicy floral aromaticity, and these are of course the characteristics of the warrior hop. But round the front curve of the tongue, the beer is definitely a little bit lighter and more grassy, and you've got a wee bit of zestiness coming out of this one as well. So yeah, the way everything sort of pieces together in this one, I think, is really quite nice on the green component, but properly old school West Coast IPA level bitterness with this one. So that's good, because quite a lot of West Coast IPAs scale back on the bitterness these days, because many new IPA drinkers have come in with the kind of lower IBU, New England's of course. But yeah, let's go on to the front third of your palate then and round off the tasting with the fruity side of the beer. So, pardon me, border region between middle, front and middle third of your palate. You get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, brown bready character in the base, the white bready character on top of that, and then yeah, you've got the kind of Pilsner malty dryness sitting on top of that. In the base of the front third of your palate, you have more, you do have more of the, you have a little bit more of the bread crusty character in there. You've got the cracker, brown bread, the white bread, and then a wee bit of the Pilsner malty crispness sitting on top of that. But then yeah, you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, I like how that goes together. So yeah, for me, the hoppy side of this beer, the fruity side of this beer, at the back of that front third of your palate, there's definitely a little touch of grapefruit in there, and I've heard, you know, Warrior I think can give you a little bit of that, and you do get wee touches of like oily pear and things, and again, Warrior is used as a bittering hop, so it will give you these elements. So yeah, there's a little bit of grapefruit at the very back of that front third of your palate, and then yeah, as you move further forward from that, you've got a wee bit of an oily, peary sort of thing, as I said, but then yeah, you start to get that soft, passion fruity character out of the Simcoe in this one, and as you move toward the middle of that front third of your palate, you can feel like a little touch of apricot underneath, like a sort of dry apricot-y note in there, and then above it there's maybe a wee touch of pineapple. But yeah, into the front half of that front third of your palate, it's all about the zesty orangey characteristics of the Amarillo. Those are the things that really kind of come out of this beer in that regard. Yeah, the fruity side of this one's nicely done. I do find that this is a beer that kind of mellows out a little bit more the more you drink of it. It has this really nice oily character that builds up. When you first take this beer in, it's actually quite bitter and quite punchy in a sense. But yeah, the oiliness in this beer really builds up, and it just gives you more and more of a sweetness the more that you drink of it, and I really like that about this one. So this is definitely a beer I would say that it has a hell of a punch to it, but bear with it a little bit and just let it mellow out, and it just grows with its sweetness and things. So as I say, it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, so on the flavour side of things, I think that's everything we need to say. Let's go to the mouthfeel side of things then to round off. I keep having brain farts in these videos, losing track. But yeah, the mouthfeel of this one, I'd say it's kind of mid-bodied, pushing toward top end of mid-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth. Does have a degree of crispness to it though, because of the presence of the Pilsner malt in there. But your IBU count in this one, I think it's got to be about 80-ish IBUs. I don't know if I'd go as far as saying that it's 90 or 100, but I think at least 80 IBUs in this one. The Warrior hop is really doing its job there. But the malt is, like we said, we've got a wee bit of graininess underneath. We've got the smoothness in the middle, the nice oily character sitting on top of it, and then you get that nice sweetness in there as well. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer, as I say, it's nice and oily. It's got a little bit of tropical fruit to it, a little bit of dryness underneath, and a wee bit of a more oily, zesty orange to it as well. So yeah, the way everything goes together in this one is really nice. I would say that it's one of the slightly more dry and crisp West Coast double IPAs that I've come across at the start, but then yeah, it mellows out and gives you that a little bit more of an oily character. So yeah, the way that everything goes together in this one, I think is very nice. Really nice West Coast double IPA, and absolutely worth trying. Definitely a more bready, biscuity and kind of crisp and light drinkable affair, this one. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this review. This one was the Hop Robber, an 8% West Coast double IPA from Deadman Brewery in Sampo Kong, Kowloon here in Hong Kong. Once again, a big thank you to Ash for giving me this canned review for you here on the channel, and you will be seeing more from these guys over the next wee while as well. So yeah, thank you for watching my reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your favourite beers from Deadman Brewery. Let me know your opinion on this beer as well. Thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Deadman Brewery's social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very shortly. Until the next time, slàinte, skål, cheers, and ciao just now.